I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. This is the Billionaire Brown experience. Let's go.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point, we know you wanted to do that, but was there ever a point where you did give up in that fight?
There was almost a point. And this is what happened. I was going through I had already gotten divorced. It was either I was still separated on my way to the divorce or I had gotten divorced. Anyway, I was hurting. It was a real tough time for both of us, for all of us. And I was hurting, and I went to my dad. By this time, I've had a relationship with my dad for 15 years or whatever. And I went to him. I said, I think I'm moving to North Carolina. My siblings live in North Carolina. 3 of my siblings. I go down there every year. I keep a relationship with them.
Where about in North Carolina?
Godwin.
Okay, I'm in Raleigh. All right, go ahead.
Okay. I saw that too, and I do go to Raleigh sometimes to take my kids. When I go down there, we go to the museums over there.
We can play some ping pong, man.
I'm down there every summer. So I was like, hey, I was like, I'm hurting. I'm thinking about going down to North Carolina. I'm going to move down there for a little bit and just kind of get myself together and clear my head. And he was like, yeah, do that. You have to take care of yourself. And it was at that moment when he said that, something came over me. Things got clearer. He wasn't there. And I thought, I can't leave my girls. I got to stick this out. I got to feel this pain. I got to stick this out because my girls need me. I'm actually getting choked up now, just like reliving it in my head. But yeah, I had to stick it out. I had to go through it. I had to feel the pain and be here for my girls. And at that time, it was on a real limited basis.
So what was the first thing that you did to make this step? Because there was tension between you and their mother, right? There was tension. It wasn't easy, you just said.
No, it wasn't easy at all.
You made that decision. You know what? I'm not going. I got to do this. Like what, if you remember, what was like the very first thing that you did?
Well, I remember everything really clear. What happened was my ex-wife, Anna, she had met someone. She told me she met someone, and she was moving. She was moving to Philly. And I thought, that's going to, it's only a few miles away, but that bridge is going to create a wedge between me and my kids. That's going to, that bridge is going to create something that isn't going to go well for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I was going to file for joint custody because at that time she had full custody. And I did that because I didn't want to disrupt my girls' lives. So I was like, look, you just take full custody. They can continue to live their lives. But with the understanding that I would have access to my girls, like not just show up like, all right, I'm taking the girls, but have complete access to my girls. And it started to slip away. So anyhow, she was moving to Philly. And so I told her, I texted her one night, I said, probably wasn't the best way to go. Text can be misread sometimes, but I said, look, I'm going to file for joint custody. And I just wanted to let you know. She got freaked out. She came to my apartment with the cops and took the kids. And there wasn't anything I could do about it. 11 o'clock at night, out of bed, kids driving down the street in the car, and there was nothing I could do. Which kind of solidified the fact that I had no power when it came to my kids' lives. So, I got a lawyer, and we sent her a letter, and it basically, stated that she had made a unilateral move, which wasn't in the best interest of the kids. And if she didn't respond to the letter to come in and try to mediate this, then we would have to go to court.
Okay, so I want to get back to this drugs thing. I have a few more questions with that.
Yeah, definitely.
But now that we're right here, I do want to ask you if you could look back, because there's so many fathers that are in your at that spot where you just had to make that decision. Looking back through this turbulence, through this, you guys weren't communicating. You weren't on the same. You may have been on the same page.
Yeah.
But you weren't in the same page in the same book, right? You was in a magazine on page 10, and she was on page 10 in a book, right?
Yeah, I got it.
what could you have done differently to make the transition what it was once you had to come back and humble yourself and recreate a plan? What could you have done differently? You guys said it doesn't work between you guys, both of you. What could you have done differently that you didn't do the first time around?
As far as the marriage is concerned?
No, well, as far as I guess co-parenting part.
Oh, okay, co-parenting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could have talked to her more. Could have had a more open dialogue, and we didn't. I think we just kind of both was in our pain, and we weren't communicating real well. And what happened was we had sort of a buffer between us. I have an uncle who helped him and his wife didn't have kids, and they kind of took care of my little one. My little one didn't go to preschool or anything like that. They kind of took care of them, and they became really attached to them, or to my little one. And he was like the buffer between us. So we were kind of using him for things going back and forth, and we were kind of dropping the kids off. I would drop the kids off. That's where I would take my kids. I would take my kids to my uncle's house, and then Anna would come later and pick them up.
And how did he become the buffer?
I kind of asked him to because my daughters were always over there already.
You kind of asked him to, or you did ask him to?
I did ask him.
Okay. How did that happen? Because I think that's big too.
Yeah.
Basically, when you're saying a buffer, you mean like a middle person.
Yes, like a mediator.
Okay,
yes.
Excellent.
So that I wouldn't always have to have contact with Anna because I was hurting. So some of this was my fault, because I was hurting and I didn't want to have contact. She may have been feeling the same way as well. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she was. She was hurting as well. It was, we got divorced and we were married for 9 years. So I asked him. I said, "Hey, look, I really want this to kind of work with the kids. Would it be okay if you be a drop-off point? I'll come here. Anna can drop the kids off here. I'll come here and pick them up, and vice versa. I'll drop them off here, and she can come pick them up." Because he had a good relationship with Anna as well.
Nice. And he was very neutral.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, he was. He was
not very neutral. This came out a little later that he really wasn't. He was more on the side of Anna than on the side of me. Not that you have to take sides, but he more leaned towards Anna.
Why? Do you know why?
I just think they had formed a pretty good relationship. I had become kind of reclusive. I had suffered from some depression and I'd have these roller coasters of emotion during the marriage. I was probably some of it that kind of, brought it down. Definitely some of it that brought it down. And they had just formed a good relationship. And I think that they also took the role of she's from another country. And she's been here since she was a child, but not her main family is back in Nicaragua. I think they kind of took almost like this parenting role to her and saw her as a daughter. And so that's why at least my uncle, kind of went in that direction. And one of the low points in that was, again, me and Anna, we weren't communicating real well. We were using my uncle as a buffer. I went to Walmart. I was going to Walmart for something. And I saw a car pull in the parking lot, and it looked like my uncle's car. And I stopped, I didn't get out of the car. I checked it. I was just seeing if it was him. Well, it was him. And he had my kids with him. And I was getting ready to leave. My kids were over there, and I was getting ready to go back home.
Without them seeing you?
Without them seeing me.
Okay.
And I can't explain why, except that I was hurt. That's why. I was hurt because me and my uncle only lived 2 miles away. And at that moment, I couldn't understand why Anna didn't call me to watch my kids. Why did she call me and say, "Hey, I'm doing something, or I got to go here," or whatever it was. Can you take care of your kids? Because, of course, I would have said yes. But instead, she sent them to my uncle. And that was a real low point for me. And this was before, we had the 50-50 and all that.
Was it them when in the parking lot? Was it really them?
Oh, yes, because I didn't leave. I went into the Walmart and caught up with them and said hi to my kids, but had no power as far as the law was concerned to take my kids.
So you lived 2 miles from your uncle?
Probably about 2 miles, yeah.
Okay.
I lived in Oakland. He lived in, if you're familiar with the area, I lived in Oakland. He lived in Woodland.
Okay. And
we share a zip code, you know?
That's crazy, man. How far did you live from Anna?
Anna, at that time, I believe we were living in Voorhees. I don't know if at that point she still lived in Voorhees or she had already made the move to Philly. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so either way, I mean, it's what, less
6,
than
7,
10
8
miles?
Yeah.
Okay, so damn, I'm the fact that you're just being very transparent. I know for a fact that you're going to inspire a lot of men to actually just do whatever is necessary. You're less than 10 miles.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this going on. I'm curious to know before we get into this drugs thing. Your story is so it's very powerful. So I'm inclined to ask questions. So I want to know, like, have you ever met anyone who is going through something very similar?
What I've met, I haven't met anyone. I really haven't met anyone that has the same arrangement as I have. I've heard that some other guy, fathers have a 50-50 and stuff like that. But most of the guys, I'm a carpenter. I'm in the carpenters union. That's neither here nor there, but I just thought I'd put that out there. And I run into a lot of guys, and I talk to a lot of guys that they're on these stipulated schedules, and they're paying a boatload of child support. And I know child support has its place. It certainly does.
Sure. But
in a lot of instances, what I've seen, my personal observation, and with talking with other carpenters, is that they're paying way too much money and seeing their kids way too little. It's almost as if they're paying for the opportunity to see their kids, but they're not seeing them enough. But they better be thankful that they get to see their kids in the amount of time they do. It seems like it definitely appears to be more about the money they can provide than the relationship they can provide. And one of my critiques of this is, if you're a father and you want to remain a crucial part of your children's lives, yet you've been stipulated to almost like a weekend dad. How can you effectively discipline your children? And I know there's dads out there that's got to, and this is why I want to do this podcast, because I know there are dads and fathers that are in that predicament and they make it work, and I want to talk to them as well, because not everyone is going to have the arrangement I have. But for me, it was like, well, how can I effectively discipline my children and be that crucial parent in their life when I don't want to disrupt anything on the weekend? I just want to have fun with them. I just want to love them. I don't want to have to send them to their room on a Saturday when all I have is Saturday. So it made it difficult, and I believe it makes it difficult for other fathers.
Wow.
So
that's really powerful. And I like, because we might as well, you just referenced it. So on your podcast, there will be other guests, and there will be other dads and things of that nature with different or sometimes similarity stories as you. What type of people, like what type of fathers, what type of dads, what type of situations would you like for people to start contacting you about as far as potential guests on the show?
Maybe initially, because I wasn't communicating in the beginning because I was hurting. And I know that, and now I recognize that maybe Anna wasn't communicating real well because she was hurting. And if somehow we can recognize that in one another, you got two people hurting and they both feel as though they're the cause of the hurt, it's real hard to communicate in that state. So that's sort of like initially the message I want to get out.